So, welcome to another episode of Work, Women, Wellbeing. I am very excited to welcome this week's guest. We have Danika Priim, who is a former England and Leeds Rhino star, as well as a freelance pundit and public speaker. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. Finally, it's good to get on it.
I know we've been trying. I've been like your stalker, haven't I? Hello, Danika. Can you come on the podcast?
As soon as I open an email or a message and I don't respond straight away, that's it. I need like a PA, but just to keep tapping me, like, come on, respond. So it's my
I
fault.
am. Well, I'm so glad you said that because I was reading a book actually that said about doing action something that's going to take 30 seconds straight away. And I was like,
Yeah,
I need that. That's me. So I can
that's me.
relate. I can relate. But it's such a pleasure to have you here. We've got so much to talk about. I was just saying off the pod to Danika how I read in 2017, was it when you had to take 5 weeks unpaid leave as a teacher to
Yeah,
go
to go play in a World
talk,
Cup.
talk to us about that?
I think the women's game, rugby league, is still very much amateur, and especially back then. And I think any opportunity to play for your country, you're going to take regardless of the things around it. And it's not until you take a step back and then you see what everyone else gets that you're like, oh, actually, that probably wasn't great. But at the time, I've been selected to play in a World Cup. I was going to do whatever I could, and I found the money somewhere. I had loads of fantastic sponsors and people helping me out and chipping along, which at the time was absolutely manic. And honestly, like, and I step back, I'm just like, for real, really? Especially when the men flew out 2 weeks before their competition started, business class, had everything. We flew out 5 or 6 days. Well, we landed on the Sunday morning in Australia, and we played on the Thursday afternoon, evening. So yeah, things have changed so much since then, though. So like, that was the last World Cup where we were completely amateur, and the World Cup since, the women have been paid for. It wasn't the UK, but yeah, it was an experience.
Oh, it's so frustrating. And talk to us. So let's go right back. Were you always sporty? How did you get into it?
Yeah, I've got 3 brothers. There was no option growing up. Like, that was it. Football, rugby, fighting, cops and robbers. I did do a little bit of the dancing and stuff because I was like, maybe I do need to keep a handle on things, but I've always been really calm. Like, I've got 3 brothers who love fighting, like everything's blame on everybody else. And I was the one in the middle that always frustrated them by being there. I can appreciate you're angry, but shall we just talk about it? Which would send them like absolutely raging. But that was my tactic, and it still is now. I'm not an aggressive person, just super, super competitive. So football, rugby, dancing, anything I could try my hand at. I then trained as a PE teacher, so it goes without saying, really. Yeah, sport is in my veins and continues to be.
Amazing. And then because I know when I was at school, there was no rugby for girls. What was it like at your school?
Yeah, there was no rugby at all. So I played football. Was really successful. Played for the English schools football over in Barcelona when I was in year 10. Um, and I think I'd always set my sights on playing for my country. And I thought, 15 years old, that's surely, if you're playing in European schools, that's as good as playing for your country as you'll get. Obviously, my name's not particularly English. I've got Eastern European heritage. So I was like, Eastern Europeans are good at shot put. So I tried athletics, and I was like, I'll try that. If I'm not good enough for England, maybe I can try Estonia. I'd always had some kind of way of trying to want to play for my country. But yeah, football started, and then I went to university at York. And I kind of got into dance a little bit, and I danced all over. I was really fortunate at dancing, which I know is really at the other end of the spectrum. But that was really stereotypical. You had to be slim, you had to be tiny, you had to be really kind of, what's the right word to use? You had to be quite arrogant and nasty to push yourself to the front in auditions. And that's just not me. Like, if I'm good enough, you'll take me. If I'm not going to put somebody else down for my own benefit. So dancing in that kind of era wasn't for me. So I went to uni. I was like, I'm done with that. What can I do that's completely away from that? And rugby, the social side was brilliant. The girls were brilliant. I was running around just holding a ball, running as hard as I could. I had no technique, no skill. I was hard runner. I was hard working, and the social side was what hooked me in. No, I can't lie. The best bunch of girls ever, and still to this day, some of my greatest friends.
Oh, that's amazing. So how did it go from there to England superstar?
it's such a fickle story, and I don't think I'll ever not be embarrassed about saying it. So I was playing rugby union. I played for my university. I played for Leeds Met at the time. Played them for the local club, which was West Park Bramhope. Got into the Yorkshire squad. Played that for a bit. The next season, got made captain of Yorkshire. So I was like, I must be all right. And it's not that I'm super humble. I think just hard work. Like team sport is brilliant about that. You know, you can't be an individual superstar. You've got to be. You're only as good as the people around you. And then I went on to the north of England stuff, and I had a really nasty injury as I was getting into like the England setup for rugby union. Snapped my ankle, and it took nearly 2 years to kind of get it back to normal. And in that time, I'd seen this guy kind of coming and watching games and things like that. Anyway, 2015, February 2015, I got a phone call. How do you fancy converting over to rugby league? And I was like, ooh, rugby union and rugby league. We don't do that. We don't mix. There's a natural kind of rivalry between the two codes. And he was like, oh, I've been watching you for the 2017 World Cup in Australia. And I just went, okay, where do I sign up? Fickle, completely fickle. He dangled this World Cup carrot. I played a little bit of league in uni for like university level rugby league. So I dabbled in it a little bit. And yeah, so that was February 15, and June 15 made my England debut over in France. So a little bit crazy, played for a local team, Stanley. Second season, got made captain there. And then the year of the World Cup, I needed to kind of play up a level. So I moved to Bradford Bulls, played with them, won the treble, played in the World Cup. And then Leeds Rhinos created a team in 2018. And there was, having been a fan since 1996, there was no way I wasn't going to try out for them. And was really fortunate to be made vice captain and run out at Headingley in my hometown shirt. So dream come true. Complete dream
Wow,
come
that's
true.
amazing. So was that the first women's team?
That Leeds Rhinos have ever had, yeah. First vice
Wow.
captain. And then the 27th of May, 2018, the first time we played at Headingley Stadium, which if you're into rugby at all is like the most beautiful stadium. You know, there's Leeds United and there's Leeds Rhinos. And they're the two teams in the north that you need to worry about. So yeah, and I'd stood in the stands, you know, since I was 12, 13 in 1996 with my brothers watching Leeds Rhinos men. Like I've always been a fan. And to this day, I work with them and I work with the players that I used to follow and idolise. And now I'm still a fan. Still deep down, I'm still a fan. Yeah, so it's a crazy, crazy journey, but it's amazing.
What an amazing. I've literally got tingles. Like I can imagine when you ran out, that must have just been like, wow, this is
Yeah, I
just
think
incredible.
there's two things like running out in a World Cup or running out in Headingley. There's like my two favourite moments. And I do think that Headingley just pips it. And I think not just because it was Headingley, but because I was wearing the jersey, I was vice captain, and there was like a record crowd there at the time. I was playing really well. I unfortunately snapped my ACL in that same game, but even that doesn't overshadow the moment of, because I remember it's a really funny story because in 96, I said to my brother, it was 96 or 97, so obviously a long time ago, I said to my brother, I really want to play in this stadium. It's amazing. And he just turned and said, you never will because you're a girl. Not because he was trying to be horrible. He just was like, it just wasn't the done thing. And I remember ringing him. I was like, I'm going to be running out at Headingley. Like even years later, that comment still stuck with me. And I was like, it never gave her that's rude. Why not? It was just like, oh, that's really sad. So yeah, it was that, I think for me was like one of those moments in life. And I think, because I was one of the oldest in the team then, you have to get it. And I was really frustrated that the younger girls were like, oh yeah, this is cool. And I was like, no, this is not just cool. This is amazing. So yeah, I think one of the best moments ever in my career.
And I think just to go back to your brother's point, it would stick with you because that's where like everything that we talk about at Jobs for Women, it's like it's unjust, isn't it? That you won't be able to do that because you're a girl, because that's what we've been told, because that's what society's putting out there. You know, the patriarchy, it's kind of like, and now we're seeing a movement which is brilliant. And I love that you've been at the forefront of that and that you're appreciating running out so much as one of the
Yeah.
oldest in the team because of this movement that you've seen. How is it changing for women's rugby? Because I know back, was it 2015 when you had to pay £300 to represent England?
Yeah. So I got the phone call to say you're going to make your England debut. It's going to cost you £300. Now, to some people, £300 isn't too much, but at the time I was like, that's significant. And then it was a week off work, and I was like, well, that's another significant. And I was so well supported by my school because I'm a teacher by trade. And I said, look, and they gave me it paid, and they were like, this is an amazing, Stanley Rugby Club, who I was playing for at the time, me and another girl, Sarah Dunn, we both got selected, and they raised the money for us to do it, to pay for it essentially, plus a little bit extra to. They were like, treat yourself to some new boots on new trainers. You need some new stuff to, make sure you look good. Look good, play good, right? But again, at the time, I was going out, I was playing for my country officially. Like, I'd done like students and I'd done the schoolgirl stuff. But for me, that was like tokenistic in the sense that if I never make it, I'd still kind of have done it. But I was like, no, I'm going to be singing my national anthem, like in an England jersey, officially as the top 17 in England at that moment. And it was just, I would have paid £1,000. I would have paid all the money in the world to do it because it was a dream come true. It was like a life goal. So, but that was, that was the last time that ever happened. And the following year we flew out to France with the men. And granted, it was with the men, so maybe that's what stirred it a little bit. But we had a chartered flight. We flew out in the morning. We had, escorts to the stadium. And then we flew back with the men and we played a double header. And it was probably because the men were there. But again, we had a chartered flight. You're like, this is cool. This is big time stuff. So it has been progressing since then. And look, the World Cup in 2017, I took 5 weeks off unpaid. I didn't have to pay to fly out. When we got there, we were treated like ultimate athletes. We had everything we needed from, you name it, the training, the clothes, all the kit, medical, psychology, the doctors, the management, the organisation, everything we had. All of the stadiums were branded with our Women's Rugby League World Cup because it was run in conjunction with the men's, but we weren't overshadowed by all the men's logos and the men's stuff. They'd really made it our tournament. So we thought then that was amazing. Yes, I didn't get paid. I had to go unpaid from my job at the time as head of PE. Looking back, yes, I'm super bitter about that in ways, but moving on to the 2022 World Cup, the women got paid the same match fees as the men. So the progress is huge.
That was my next question. Wow.
Yeah, and I don't want to put a dampener on that because the men are elite athletes. So ultimately, they're still being paid monthly from their clubs because they're professional athletes. So they still got paid a bit more, but that, it's like taking paid leave or something, isn't it? But that step in the right direction to, and it's kind of a weird way it works. So you don't get paid just for being in the World Cup. You only get paid per game or per selection. So there is, if you weren't selected, if you were just in the training squad, because you take 23 with you, there's a chance that you might not ever play. So there is a chance that you might not get paid, but you're still training and being a part of the squad. So there is elements that still need work. However, the progress is huge. And that's what the focus, I think, needs to be on, is that progress in 4 years, 5, because it was delayed because of COVID, from not being paid and taking 5 weeks unpaid to being paid as equal as the men in a World Cup is huge.
Yeah, that's huge progress. And surely the only way is up from here. What about how obviously we know that traditionally rugby is perceived to be male dominated. We know that there's so much in the media about, women, because obviously you're doing your public speaking, you're doing your freelance, you're a freelance pundit. What's the reception like as a woman, as an ex-England, international star? What has it been like talking to men about it? How are you perceived?
On the whole, super positive. Like, majority of stuff has been really wicked. And I think from a punditry side, I just try and be honest. And I think, and I mean, this was the greatest of like sincerity and empathy towards women. There has been a time where you had to say what you think people wanted you to say. Whereas I've never been anybody else but me. And my opinion is my opinion. If you like it, great. If you don't, but you know what? I don't like everyone else's opinion myself. So I've always been super honest and super true to myself. And there are comments you make that get taken out of context. And oh my goodness, like last season, I said there was 2 teams, Wigan and Hull KR, who were playing. Wigan were set to win everything and are fantastic. but Hull KR were just as good, were progressing. I said after the first half, it's less about how good Wigan are and more about how poor Hull KR have been in this first half. Well, that was it. Apparently, I said that Wigan were the worst team in the world and I hated them. And I was like, it's context, isn't it? And then from there, that bunch of fans and that, yes, then I got everything like, she's worthless, she's useless, she talks a lot of rubbish, she needs to be back in the kitchen. Like the classic, get back in the kitchen. Like, throw me another one. Do you know what I mean? Like, but you put yourself out there, like, and I watch pundits and you watch it completely differently once you've been in it. And I do watch and I just think, oh, you're not great. But it's not because they're a woman or because they're a man. It's because they've not prepped or they're not as knowledgeable or, you know, you get told at least a couple of days, maybe if not more, before you're doing X and Y team. So do you know what? Spend the time getting to research X and Y team. Don't assume you know them because you watch it all the time. And I think that's the difference. Like, if I've done a bad job and like I got the opportunity to do some really wild things last season and I wasn't happy with my performance, but there's a way, isn't there? Like, my thing for people is if you've got feedback, DM me it. Once you've done it, and if you've got the experience of being on the screen and you think I can do better, send me your feedback. Don't roast me on social media. Like, let me know what you think I can do better, because you know it's just the way it is. But I think, yeah, we do get more. And more recently, my best mate Joey Barton, I'm sure he needs a little bit of help, doesn't he? Since then, I have seen a little bit more of a rise in the negativity, but this huge, you know, this kind of the guy that's in the media who's followed by millions has put out a statement. So loads of men think, brilliant, I can just jump on that his kind of wave a little bit. So, but it's the rough in this movie. If you don't like it, not saying that it's right, and I'm not saying you should take it, but at the end of the day, it's like anything. If you don't like a TV show, you don't like a film, you comment on it and you say, oh God, that was rubbish, that was horrendous. That still affects the people in it. So if you're going to put yourself out there, yes, it's a rocky ride, but I've got to say on the most part of it, there's been so much support and so much love, and I'm so humbled by, you know, what people think of me and the nice messages that they do send.
Awesome. And do you enjoy the punditry? You said, just to go to your earlier point as well, did you, when you weren't happy with your performance, was there any reason why, or are you just quite critical?
Both, but I got the chance from Sky Sports last year to go and do my own feedback from a game. So in punditry, you have a presenter, which is generally somebody really experienced, really great. And all punditry is, and I mean this, it's not easy, but all punditry is somebody asking you a question. So, Danika, who do you think is going to be really good from this team today? Well, I think that so-and-so is going to be good because. So punditry is just giving your opinion. Whereas I'm reporting back and I had to get in the scores, the tries. And even though it's similar really to what you do, you're just giving factual information. I didn't have my team around me. I didn't have somebody, like, basically the presenter carries the show. And if you fumble or stumble, they just pick up and ask another question. And I never speak down the camera. I speak to a person. Where I was reporting and I was like, oh, there's a camera. I'm staring down it. And there's 4 men behind it. Oh, look at this, is very different. Oh, wait, you're live. And I'm like, okay, everybody. And it was just sheer panic. It was just sheer panic. And I'm really good I'm critical, but I wouldn't ever like, oh my God, I was the worst thing ever. I'm like, that wasn't great. I know what I did wrong. I over prepped, I over scripted myself. I just needed to speak what was going on. But it was just panic. And it's another time I did it from the middle of the pitch. I had to do like a team news and I had to run across the pitch whilst they were warming up. It was raining, it was cold. You have like ears in where you get feedback from the gallery that say, oh, you got five seconds, or Danica can move on. That was crackling and breaking up. And I'm like, I'm just going to speak into the camera. But they're both really daunting, you know, things. And you have to start somewhere. And yes, I'll spend a day being like, oh, that's rubbish. But then the next for me is like, next time I'll do this. Next time I'll do that. But honestly, like, I turn up to a show, I rock up, get my hair and makeup done. I hang around in a trailer with loads of really cool people, and quite often people I've idolised, like Adam Hills, the Australian comedian that does The Last Leg, Helen Skelton, who's a really good friend who's just been on Strictly Come Dancing. I'm sat in a Winnebago, having my hair and makeup done, somebody's making me coffee, chatting with these people. I go out, I watch a game I love, I give my opinion, and you want to pay me for that? That's insane. That is insane. And like the past 2 seasons, I've presented from Old Trafford and from Wembley, and from loads of stadiums in the north. Like, that is a sports girls rugby league fan's dream. I'm waltzing backstage and along the pitch, just like I'm waving to people that are not even waving to me because I'm like, look where I am. And honestly, and I think the day that I stop feeling like that is the day that I'm done with it. Because
Yeah.
for 2 years now, I've done it consistently. So I did it a little bit beforehand and I've done radio and stuff. And it doesn't get any less exciting. And I'm not, I'm so grateful for every opportunity like this, every podcast, because at the end of the day, I just do something I love. And to think that people see it differently is insane. It's lovely and it's amazing. And when I get stopped and asked for my picture, I'm like, hey, and me. I'm like, take a picture of you taking a picture. And so I'm just living this kind of, I'm riding a wave. I'm like, this is my analogy. I'm surfing. It's sunny, the wind in my hair. I'm balancing everything. I'm just having the time of my life. And this wave is going to crash at some point. And I hope when it crashes, whether it's in a week, whether it's in a year, whether it's in 10 years, that we smoothly crash and we walk off the beach and I just step off the surfboard and that wave's done. And I hope whenever it ends, that's how it ends. Because if the ride ended tomorrow, of course, I'd be a bit sad and a bit like, oh, that was great. But it is just a different world and it's amazing.
I think your story though is fascinating. Your energy and your passion and your down to earth amazingness is like palpable. But like when you think about it, how you came into it, like when you talked about it at uni and like the social side and the girls were amazing. Like I could feel that. I always played sport at school. But your journey, when you think about it, is very unique because you've been through the having to pay yourself to represent
Yeah.
England, taking 5 weeks off, and you've come through the, running out at Headingley. It's almost like you've seen everything. So I think you're in such a powerful place to share your story, to make change for the next
Well,
generation.
I think that's one of the big things. I snapped my ACL in my knee, which, if anybody knows, is a huge injury that's happening in women's football loads at the minute, in netball, in rugby. And there's a lot of science behind whether it's because of the menstrual cycle and things like that. And like I pray and I urge somebody to figure that out because it's happening. But we just gone, like we weren't pro, we weren't being paid, but we were as good as pro because Leeds Rhinos gave us everything. We trained where the men trained, we got the team bus, we got the match day, we got the medical in us fashion, we got the coach, the training, the strength and conditioning, the counsel, everything. So we had everything the men had, right, apart from the money, which was the first time a club had done that. I'd snapped my ACL and I went to have a look and it was like a 6 months waiting list on the NHS. And I was like, I can't do that. Absolutely not. So I ended up paying for my own operation. So I snapped my ACL on the 27th of May, 2018. It took maybe a month or so for me to be like, right, I'm not waiting around. I then, beginning of August, got in contact with a private clinic, got the operation on the 11th of September, which is my birthday. And I'd paid for it. Then I went to see the Gary Hetherington, who owns Leeds Rhinos. And I was like, can you help me at all? And he was like, we haven't even accounted for that. And I don't, begrudge him for this, but they'd accounted in their sponsorship and their income for the women's game. Every penny was accounted for because we got so much. And I know it sounds like nothing, but anyway, I had my operation on the September 11th. It was a Tuesday because it's the first day of training I'd ever missed because we trained on Tuesday and Thursday. So I'd missed the Tuesday, I'd missed the Thursday because I was in hospital still. On a Sunday, I got taken because I didn't want to miss the girls playing. And I was back in training on the Tuesday for rehab. And I was like, start my rehab now. That Tuesday, Gary had paid for an insurance guy to come in and speak to the girls, which, massive step. Have insurance at least. And he was like, the guy didn't know. And he was like, any of you girls snap your ACL, it'll be a £10,000 payout. At which point, as I'm done. However, the next girl that snapped their ACL got much more support from the club. And since then, the support for injuries and operations, and I'm not saying I was the catalyst in that, but because I've got the confidence to step forward and say, hey, look, you want this club to be as professional as possible. You want athletes. You've got to look after every aspect, not just the training and the strength and conditioning. How about the medical? What about, do you know what? Girls are really emotional beings. Let's see what happens, that time of the month or when things happen. There needs to be, oh, wait a minute. We've also got mothers, on the team as well. There's so many variables, which I guess as an owner of a club, you don't have to think about when for years you've just run a male dominated club. And it's not, again, unless you're highlighted that and unless you're told about that, you can't shout and bawl at somebody for not sitting them down and going, have you considered? And then bing, 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 no. And things then change. So change happens when you're respectful about it and you've just got to appreciate that there are a lot of men out there that don't see women in businesses or don't see women in sport, but change their mind, but give them, I think, reason, isn't it? And understanding why things need changing.
Yeah,
And
we
look,
need them to be in the
now.
room, don't we? Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's exactly it. But deliver it just as we'd want things to be delivered. I think we can protest and shout and bawl about rights and stuff, but why? What can you offer? What can you bring to it? What can you do differently? So yeah, and things are changing now. So I'm super proud that I've been a part of that. And there's loads more people around that have done change, and there's loads more stalwarts of the game that the girls that have gone before me, but little bits and pieces here and there, just filtering, drip feed constantly. It'll change.
Yeah, grassroots approach. And then what about the future of like rugby when we're thinking about women? Is there more rugby in schools now?
Yeah, so much so. There was like a huge thing by 2021 that we wanted the increase in women and girls to be 2021, like an increase in what for the World Cup, and it was. We've smashed it. And it's that cliche. It's not cliche. I'm not even sorry for saying it. If you can see it, you can be it. And look, rugby league is not a very affluent sport. So there's no way I want the girls to be full-time professionals just yet, because it's not sustainable. The incremental gains that we're getting from Sky Sports and BBC showing the games, Sky Sports, BBC, Channel 4, having people like me, females on, having guests that are females, I'm interviewing other females, like small things like that. And it's, in a way, it is tokenistic, but somebody has to be that token gesture in order to start the change. And that was me. I've got 3 brothers. I grew up in a very male-dominated household. I was the only female in my family for 10 years until my cousin came along. So you are that token gesture, but take the token and run with it and be good with it, use it. And now the women's game, we've got professional contracts. They're not full-time, but £6,000 a year doesn't sound like much, but that pays for new boots, that pays for your transport, that pays for a bit of food afterwards. Having the exposure that the girls do, like refereeing, punditry, playing, coaching, the female coaches in the game are phenomenal. And it's taken a long time to get really good, high standard female coaches at the highest level. They're not only coaching the Super League teams, but they're coaching in the England setup. But it's not even about the presence of females. You've got to be good enough. So if there's a male counterpart that is better, then fair dues. If there's a female counterpart, and it's not, don't be tokenistic just for the sake of having that number in, because for things like sport and for things like business, you need to be good at your job in order, to represent it. So there's the game is growing, and it's at a great sustainable pace. So there's just been two official full-time. Well, the girls have been announced as Sky team, Courtney Winfield Hill and Jodie Cunningham, who are going to be on that Sky team this season, which is amazing to have them on there alongside Jenna Brooks, who's the pitchside reporter anyway, and sometimes she presents. There's loads of things now progressing, and there's people making change, and it's not because they're women, it's because they're good. Like Courtney and Jodie are some of the best in the business at the punditry and the commentary as well. So Jodie also plays, and she's also the England captain, and that does help. But it's not because she's the England captain, it's because she's got a good opinion. So yeah, things are progressing really well. The clubs like York Valkyrie are it was Leeds Rhinos and York Valkyrie that kind of were pushing boundaries, but York have kind of jumped ahead. And Leeds now are chasing the tail a bit, which I know that Gary Hetherington will hate. And it is a competition between the CEOs and the chairman as well about how can we be better. So, But we need exposure. We need more money in the game. I would never want somebody to come and like just put a load of money in the game if they're not interested in it. The people behind the game, the sponsorships, the endorsements have got to be invested in the game. It's different to the men's. We're not as hard hitting, and it's not as, mind you, the men's isn't as so much anymore, but it is fast and it is skillful. And you've still got the acrobatics of the try scoring, and you've still got the women commentating on it. And the women were at Wembley for the first time last year alongside the men's Challenge Cup. Like, and to be part of the presenting team, like halfway through, I'm embarrassed, but I'm not. But St Helens are playing Leeds Rhinos, and I'm Leeds Rhinos through and through, and Leeds lost. And I watched St Helens lift the trophy, and somebody said, "Oh, how does that feel?" And I was just crying. I was like, "It doesn't matter who wins right now. What matters is for years and years and years we fought to get the Challenge Cup at Wembley as a double header with the men. Today is a day for female sport, for female rugby. As much as I'd love a different team to be lifting it, I don't. This moment is just for. I'm so jealous I wasn't on the pitch. I'm so jealous I didn't play on it. But the next best thing was to be part of the presenting team and still be pitch side and to still see the girls afterwards and to just feel the energy of that was incredible. And that's for another 2 years at least now. The next one is to get the grand finals, a double header at Old Trafford. We're a little bit of a way off there, but that's because of Old Trafford and the ground staff, not because of the RFL. But yeah, it is growing, and it is, the academy teams are massive and the girls get involved are massive, and there's just so much more interest in for women's and girls rugby now. It's incredible.
Oh, I can literally feel. I went all tingly again, like that. What you said, it's almost like, it's like a moment in history, isn't it? Like, yeah, it wasn't your
It makes me
team, but
emotional still.
yeah, well, so powerful because you're part of that progress, and you were there, you were a part of it. Well, you just got to keep doing what you're doing. I'm fascinated. I love your energy. If
Thank you.
people want to connect with you, find out what you're up to, where's the best place that they can find you?
I don't know. Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter,
Okay.
X. I don't know
Yeah, and I'll
any. Like,
all of the above. I'll
yeah.
put all of the links in the show notes. So whatever social platform you're on, you can give Danika a follow. And I just want to extend a huge thanks from me and the team just for giving us your time, because I was so eager to get you on because I think your story's bloody
Oh,
brilliant.
thank
So
you.
thank you. Thanks
No,
for
thank you
coming
so much for
on.
having me. Like, I get really giddy speaking about it all still. So thank you. Like, what a way to start a Monday.